In a hardcore Nuzlocke, you catch your encounters, give them each endearing nicknames, and then run home screaming and crying to your mommy when any of them meets their maker. Now we just restrict ourselves to using only one type, forbid overleveling in the use of items in battle, and then we've got ourselves a monotype hardcore variant. Fairy types may at first glance appear to be frail creatures, but don't underestimate them too much, because they actually have some of the best special stats in the game. Anyways, this is my attempt of a fairy monotype hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Ultra Sun. Take a quick moment to remind yourself that you don't need to pull out your arteries and veins, and let's get started. Enjoy! Welcome to day 1 of our journey in the Alola region. While we go and pick up our starter Wanda the Poplio, Mom gets hard at work unpacking all these moving boxes. Now, I know what you're all getting ready to comment. Actually, Poplio is a water type and doesn't become a fairy until it evolves into Primarina? Oh, you think you're funny, eh? You're a real funny man. Go on, test me one more time, and I may just snap! Anyways, yeah, I know Poplio isn't technically a fairy, but we don't get our first fairy encounter until after we complete the trainer school objectives. And honestly, that encounter is just a Mime Jr. anyways, so I decided to allow myself to keep using Poplio until I had 2 fairy types on the team. And you'll see why this was kinda necessary for the run to be possible here in a bit. So please just bear with me.
Nappy. Nappy. Nappy.
What could possibly go wrong with me saving this poor defenseless cosmic fart? We end up having a pretty close call at this little battle festival thing being held in my honor. Hal may choose the starter weakest to your choice in this game, however he also happens to have a Pichu, and Pichu's ability is Static. Of course, I'm only able to lead with Wanda here, so I go for a Pound and then bear the brunt of both Static activation and a super effective Thundershock. I then decided to try to go for a Water Gun rather than Pound to both take advantage of my higher special attack stat and get a stab boost. And I'm practically smacking myself in the face now, realizing that it could have all been over without Static ever happening, had I simply used Water Gun twice. Oh well, live and learn I guess. Charm then halves our attack, but that doesn't really matter since clearly I'm not going to go back to using Pound anytime soon. One more Water Gun takes it out, and then he sends in his starter Litten. A Water Gun is almost enough to one-shot it after it goes for a Growl, and on the next turn I'm stuck doing nothing thanks to Paralysis. It finally goes to deal some damage with Scratch, but my Water Gun manages to make it through on the next turn, bringing us the victory. It's now day 3, and Mom hasn't made much headway on any of these boxes yet. I'm starting to think she's just watching her Netflix all day. Gotta catch up on Dancing with the Starmies after all, am I right? We're just about to visit the professor when everything outside goes pitch black, and Lily proves to us just how bad the Alolan education system truly is. Sweetie, it's not an eclipse, just look at all the clouds. After committing horrible acts of violence against school children, we finally get a chance to meet a real-life fairy. Everyone, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Cosmo the Mime Jr. Can you guess my naming theme yet? It's also pretty important that I mention these totem stickers here, since we're going to be using them later on for one of our encounters, but that's coming up later in the video, so stay tuned. So, we have our first major battle of the game coming up here, and that's against Captain Ilima. Ilima has 2 Pokemon, and Mime Jr. sucks eggs. And Cosmo here sucks extra huge honking eggs. Why, you may ask? Well, it's simple really. I caught him at level 9, and so he didn't know the move Barrier. Barrier was potentially the only way around this battle that I could think of involving the use of just Mime Jr. Now, I could have reset this entire run to try to encounter a level 7 Mime Jr. that knows Barrier, but I was feeling particularly lazy when I recorded, so I just decided to keep playing with Poplio. It's fairy enough for the time being. Ilima leads with Yungoos while I send in Cosmo. One of my confusion attacks takes out about a third of its HP before it hits hard with a critical hit Pursuit. I repeat again with Confusion, and manage to confuse Yungoos, but unfortunately it does break through and smack us with a Tackle. This activates my Oranberry though, bringing us back up to 15 HP to knock it out with a third Confusion. The crit was definitely not necessary there. He then brings in his ace Smeargle, which prompts me to switch out into Wanda. Smeargle's 2 moves here are Tackle and Leafage, but I have a strategy that will reduce it down to nothing. I didn't know this before the playthrough, but Baby Doll Eyes is actually a priority move. So in most cases, you can lower an opponent's attack stat one stage before they even get a chance to hit you. I take advantage of this to decrease Smeargle's attack as much as possible with Wanda. After this, I then switch back into Cosmo and start going for Confusion yet again. On our second Confusion, we get lucky though, and inflict Confusion on Smeargle. Normally, this wouldn't be enough to save a doomed battle. However, Ilima is equipped with a full heal. This means I can get additional damage off while he wastes a turn to heal the Confusion. Without that clutch Confusion, we definitely would have lost here, since Cosmo was left on just 1 HP after the battle. I wish I could say close calls like this were an anomaly in this run, but I'd just be flat out lying if I did. Now, I've gotta come clean. Technically, because of my poor experience management, both Cosmo and Wanda overleveled before we made it to the next encounter. But like, come on, I had to do a mandatory battle right before the grass where I could catch a cutie fly. I figured a good compromise would be to catch Poof here and then immediately box all my other team members for the time being. To me, that just seemed like a bit more realistic of a solution than restarting the whole run. I mean, literally, I was mere footsteps away from catching it without overleveling. Anyways, if you have a problem with my decision to not restart here, go cry about it to someone who cares. I'd be lying if I said the trial in Verdant Cavern was easy. Sure, beating the first 3 Yungoos and Gumshoos encounters was pretty trivial. But how in the world was I supposed to beat the totem with only a cutie fly? So this totem is actually a version exclusive, because if I were playing Ultra Moon right now, this would be Eradicate. And since Alolan Raticate is a dark type, that means this trial would actually be easier for fairy types in Ultra Moon than it is in Ultra Sun. Maybe that's a reason why this challenge was suggested. So I start off using Silverwind with Poof, and we do get the Omni boost by some stroke of sheer luck. Anyways, Gumshoos hits us with a scary face and then calls in a reinforcement Yungoos. I get off another Silverwind, which depleted me completely of the move's PP, but I had planned for this by equipping a Lepa Berry I got from one of the berry trees outside. We take a Leer from Yungoos before finishing off the totem with a final Silverwind, then use it one last time to claim victory over the whole trial. With the Normalium Z in bag, never to see the light of day again, we make our way to save Nebby in the Melee Meadow and catch Blonda the Flabebe. Yeah, I know, it's such an original and unique name. After a bit more training, Cosmo evolves into a Mr. Mime, and I decide I'm ready to take on Hala in the first grand trial. You probably weren't expecting a fighting expert to give me any trouble in battle, and you'd be absolutely right. He starts off the battle by bringing in a Machop, and I decide to lead with Poof with our new move, Draining Kiss. One kiss leaves it with just under half health as he uses Focus Energy. We're faster though, so all that getting pumped up was in vain. Makuita's next, and I'm pretty sure he always goes for Fake Out here, so I decide to just let Poof take the damage and regain HP on the next turn with another Draining Kiss. It doesn't do quite as much damage as I'd like though, and we get hit with a nasty Sand Attack. So on the next turn I switch into Cosmo, but it goes for another Sand Attack, which really isn't ideal. Confusion connects next turn though, stopping just short of taking it down. We then get hit by yet another Sand Attack. The cycle repeats once more as he uses his Super Potion, and I get a critical hit Confusion. It's still not enough to take it out though, so we get the knockout after taking a 4-turn Arm Thrust. Finally, he brings in his Ace Crabrawler, but we're still at reduced accuracy thanks to all the Pocket Sand, so we miss our first Confusion and he hits us with Pursuit. Instead of going for a Z move though, he instead opted for a double Leer as my Confusion went hit or miss. I guess they sometimes miss, huh? Hitting the dab brings us the victory with a final Confusion. After taking some time to terrorize the streets of Hau'oli City with Tauros, we're ready to leave Melee Island in the dust. Surfs up, Cowabunga dude, and all that jazz. We're surfing this Mantine all the way to Akala Island. This actually is a pretty fun minigame though, I'm not gonna lie. Akala Island is home to 3 trials, each based around the water, fire, and grass types respectively. We dismount our Manta Ray friend and stroll into Hiya City to meet up with the Professor and Lily. We're also graced by a visit from the island Kahuna, Olivia, and Trial Captain Mallow. Nebby, get in the bag. Our next encounter isn't all too far away either, which is quite a treat since encounters in this run have seemed to be few and far between. And this encounter is actually pretty exciting for me too, since this is probably one of the best ones we'll be able to add to our team for the entire game. So, enough stalling, say hello to Wandissimo the Eevee. But of course, he's not an Eevee for long. A few head pets and delicious and delectable beans later, and we've got ourselves a powerful Sylveon. And Wandissimo isn't alone in evolving, since Blonda also evolves into a Floette around the same time. I walk this lonely road north of the ranch to meet this emo, anime, trope, stereotype, whatever, blocking our path to the next trial. And now that he's fallen, we just leave his spirit sleeping somewhere cold. At least until his Goonies find it there and lead it back home. Just gotta check our Pokemon's vital signs real quick. You know, just to make sure we're still alive, and then we go back to walking alone. Now that the lights finally returned to my world, we're up against our second trial, and I'm just gonna be honest here. I relied pretty heavily on luck for this one, and I'm kinda surprised with the outcome. I decided to start with Wandissimo to use some pocket sand of my own. I wanted to minimize the chance of being hit as much as possible, since any water-type moves in this rain could cause serious issues. Its bubble still connects on the first turn, and then it calls in an allied Dewpider. This is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them to sand attack. And to make matters even worse, Araquanid's next bubble gets a critical hit on us. But my Citrus Berry is also activated here to bring our HP back to around 2/3. So yeah, my whole strategy with Wandissimo is to make these mons as inaccurate as possible. And I honestly probably should have played around critical hits here, but thankfully I do end up going unpunished. We get hit by some more bubbles, but I get off plenty more sand attacks before being forced to switch out into Cosmo, thanks to some reliable healing from Draining Kiss. It probably was dumb of me to take out the Dewpider before taking out the Totem though, since now that means it's able to call in a much more dangerous Masquerain right before I make the switch. Here's where the luck really kicks into high gear. Cosmo ends up paralyzed on the switch, but next turn is able to hit a Charge Beam on the Totem and get the special attack boost. The damage was weakened due to an unfortunate Wakan Berry, but at least now that's out of the way and we're buffed for higher damage later. We're hit with a Bug Bite and Araquanid misses before we get to use our next Charge Beam. No stat buff this time though, sadly. I make a bit of a defensive play here and switch into Blonda to tank some not very effective bug-type moves. I had not intended for this to happen, but I decided to give Razor Leaf a shot, which was kinda silly on my part since Floette has terrible physical attack. Anyways, the real strategy for bringing in Blonda was so she could use Wish. Wish is a move that heals your current Pokemon 50% after the turn following its use. This means I can set up Wish in one turn, then switch back into Cosmo to bring us back to just shy of 3/4 health. I can't do anything about the paralysis, but what I can do is take out the Totem in the next turn with another Charge Beam. Masquerain on its own is then no major threat, which is good since we got smacked for the paralysis turn. Charge Beam leaves it on just a sliver, but then all I've got to do is bring in Poof and claim the victory with Struggle Bug. I'll be taking that Crystal now, thank you very much. I thought Lana said she already got rid of these Sudowoodo. Dulce? Dolce? Dulce? Yeah, however you pronounce his name, him, yeah. He refused to let me pass until I've curb stomped him with Cosmo. Free experience, I guess, I ain't complaining. And then almost immediately after this curb stomping, we run into some trouble with Team Skull. But all we have to do to pass is have this little 8-year-old girl threaten the grunts with manslaughter. That's actually a pretty dark joke this game just made. Props to you, Pokemon Company. And unless you want to be trampled by Hapu's Mudsdale too, I highly suggest you subscribe to the channel. Only about 4% of my viewers are subscribed, and this horse is feeling pretty bloodthirsty. I'm sure the remaining 96% would satiate its appetite. No, I don't want to do a battle royale. This isn't Fortnite, no matter how many silly dances you put in the game. No! Well, now that that's over, we can take on our next trial. Fairies have trouble dealing significant damage to fire types. However, I have an ace up my sleeve. I make a quick trip back to Melee to pick up my encounter at 10 Carat Hill. Jorgen von Strangle the Carbink is going to be my ace for this battle, since he gains both an additional offensive and defensive advantage against the Totem Marowak. I made sure to pick it up from the middle open field area, which is in kind of a gray zone for if it counts as the same area as the cave. So I'm going to use this ambiguity to my advantage and come back for a Mawile in the cave section later, just to maximize the possible versatility of the run. Because, let's be real, I'll need all the help I can get. I also picked up the Hard Stone here and taught Fling to Cosmo, just in case things went south. Marowak starts off the battle by going for Detect, just as I anticipated. This allows me to set up a free Harden. It then detects again for some silly reason as its ally Salazzle goes for a Venoshock. I then get a critical hit Rock Tomb on Salazzle, which nearly takes it down and also reduces its speed. It's still faster though, so on the next turn it hits us with a Torment. Marowak then fails to detect after trying it for a third time. I have no idea what the AI was doing here, but I'll take it. We finish off the Salazzle, and next turn go for Harden since we can't use Rock Tomb. I'm going for Harden over Reflect here simply because Marowak is equipped with Brick Break. The Torment starts to bite me in the back a little bit, as now Marowak is able to use Detect successfully to block my Rock Tombs and hit back the next turn with more Brick Breaks. For some reason though, it then starts going for Hex, so I'm able to start reducing its speed with Rock Tomb. I did then finally decide to set up a Reflect to hopefully lure it into using Brick Break when I switch into Cosmo. I'm able to lock it into Hex using Encore, and then throw that Hardstone at it for some pretty decent super effective Dark type damage. Cursed Body activates, preventing us from using Fling anymore, but you can only use Fling when holding an item, and yeah, we just threw our item away. So Cursed Body there literally means nothing to me. A critical hit Confusion seals the deal, winning us a piece of Fiery MZ. Oh great, now the aliens have met a quirky scientist. With their powers combined, they'll be able to harvest all of the human feet in the Alola region. Yeah, creepy. I train up to the level cap and take on Mallow's trial. And I actually purposely attract the Fomantis and Comfey to attack me for one very specific reason. The level cap on the trial is 24, but that's simply the level you have to be to enter the trial at. Poof evolves at level 25, so naturally, it's ideal to come in with a Cutiefly, but battle the Totem with Rabombi. The Fomantis and Comfey give just enough experience for us to evolve. So now armed with Powder Puff, we're able to easily handle the Totem Lurantis. Because of the Totem stat boost, we take an X-Scissor before hitting hard with Pollen Puff. We can't take it out first turn though, so it calls in an ally Comfey, and on the next turn heals back to full with Synthesis and Floral Healing. I start going for Struggle Bugs instead, to slowly whittle it down to where it doesn't heal. My next Pollen Puff just barely fails to bring it down, so it does get one more Synthesis in, but it's not enough to survive another Pollen Puff on the next turn. Then, since Comfey here just runs a support set, we have no trouble taking it down as well. This was definitely the easiest trial yet. After this, we're also able to get a few more encounters. First, we head back into the lush jungle and pick up a Comfey of our own. I named this bad boy Cupid, then made a beeline directly for the Brooklet Hill to pick up a nighttime only Morlul encounter. Big Daddy is totally going to help us demolish Kahuna Olivia's team of rock types. But first, he does need to evolve to have any shot fighting in the big leagues. Olivia's Probopass greets us in Coney City, but I don't trust that it's not just covering up for Olivia sleeping in upstairs. So, interesting. Ooh, totem sticker. It's finally time for our second grand trial. Her Anorith's up first, and I start with Cupid to set up a Confusion with Sweet Kiss. It hits itself in Confusion, and then next turn she uses a full heal while I go for Magical Leaf. I Sweet Kiss again, and again she hits herself in Confusion. But this prompts her to use her Super Potion. Magical Leaves are doing about a quarter, while her return Metal Claws do a significant amount more. We're brought down to just 12 HP before it falls, and she brings in Lileep. My first goal is to heal to near full, so I start by going for a double Synthesis while it chips away with Giga Drain. I'm then able to go back to the Sweet Kiss strategy. Seriously, what is with my Confusion luck? This is fantastic! I switch to Cosmo to set up a Light Screen, then follow up with a series of Psybeams. Just before taking the kill, I set up a Reflect to prepare for her next Mon. I switch to Wandissimo then to take the kill with some Draining Kisses, but unfortunately I took too long. So now our Reflect has gone down, right as she brings in her Certified Good Boy. I switch to Big Daddy to hopefully waste her Z move by using Protect. But for some reason, all this big stinker does is choose to bite me, over, and over, and over. I use Jorgen to safely set up Reflect again, then keep trying to predict the Z move that never comes. This battle really dragged on and on, all because I was afraid it would use its Z move when I wasn't protected or under Reflect. This was pretty much the definition of anxiety. I'm gonna speed up the footage a lot here just to show you how silly this was. It was all for nothing too, since 2 Giga Drains would have been enough to seal the victory. At least we didn't lose anyone. These cutscenes at the Aether Paradise give us some significant lore dumps, kinda like watching Lord of the Rings, but they're also incredibly long, also like Lord of the Rings. After watching all this though, I've gotta say, President Lusamine has got to be one of the most level-headed individuals I've ever met, like a Pokemon equivalent of the average Twitter user. We arrive at Ula Ula Island, where the professor meets up with me to ask some heavy-hitting questions like, who are we? Why are we here? Why can't I wear white after Labor Day? I don't know, man, do I look like a philosopher? I also don't understand the logic jump between, this dimensional rift opened up right in front of us, to, that's motivation to train more for your island challenge. But pop off, man. Oh boy, and another great example of the excellent Alolan education system at work. Before heading out of the garden, I managed to snag myself a Cottony, but for now it's just gonna rot away in my PC boxes. We also tag along with Lily to the Melee Library and meet that Habu girl from before, but not much really comes out of us being here aside from also meeting a future trial captain and picking up a few more totem stickers. I promise you, they're very important later, just be patient. On to the next trial we go, which I would have to say was the most difficult of the whole run, since the totem here is Togedemaru. Togedemaru is a steel type, which means it can hit us super hard while my team doesn't have great coverage to retaliate. Before challenging the trial though, Kukui shows me the construction of his Pokemon League atop Mount Lanakila. I don't know though, seems kinda wrong to build on the most sacred place in the entire region, but you do you. This is also the point where I went back to catch that Mawile, since it would be pretty indispensable for the coming battle. Mawile has access to Fake Tears, Iron Defense, and Baton Pass at this level. I start setting up our defenses, since the totem and its ally Skarmory only have physical moves. Once I hit +6 defense, then I go for Crunch on Skarmory and Fake Tears against Togedemaru, to even further minimize the damage we take. We took a hefty sum of hits on Mawile, but I'm able to Baton Pass all of our buffs to the fully healed Sylveon. Our Draining Kiss does a ton more than I first thought it would, but using a physical move like that means we do end up taking some damage from Spiky Shield. I start to go for a combination of Draining Kiss, Sand Attack, and Baby Doll Eyes after getting tormented by Skarmory. But this works in our favor since we wanted to cheese the battle as much as possible anyways. I even get lucky and have Cute Charm activate against the Skarmory, which helps us stay in for much longer. Once the totem finally falls, all we've got to do is drain Skarmory slowly but surely. Its Steel Wing attacks here are doing pretty much nothing thanks to the setup with Mawile. It always feels great when strategies just fall into place exactly how you want.
Hey, it's your boy, Skinny Penis.
With that nightmare out of the way, we immediately get to face our next nightmare in the form of a Ghost-type trial. Totem Mimikyu is quite a behemoth to go up against, since every single one of its stats is boosted, and it has the ability Disguise. In case you've been living under a rock for the past 6 years, Disguise is the signature ability of Mimikyu that essentially starts it off with a free substitute, without the need for an HP sacrifice. I led with Wandissimo to reduce its attack by 2 stages with much needed priority using Baby Doll Eyes. This allows a more safe switch into Carbink, who gets to set up a Reflect. We also hit the Mimikyu with a Rock Tomb to both lower its speed and break the Disguise, but this comes at a severe cost. Baynet starts a curse when we're below 1/4 HP, which is an immediate death sentence. The rules of the Nuzlocke state that now Jordan has to say goodbye forever. But his sacrifice doesn't go in vain, since now Mawile has an extremely safe switch to start setting up with Iron Defense again and go for a few crunches to hopefully take Baynet down. Unfortunately, not only does Baynet burn us before falling, but it also gives us a final f*** you in the form of a quick curse. At the time though, I didn't think too much of this. I didn't fully understand how Curse operated, and so to my surprise when I Baton Passed into Poof, lo and behold the Curse followed me. My goal here was to reduce Mimikyu's special defense with Bug Buzz, but we got pretty unlucky since neither of our attacks got the drop. Curse brings us all the way to 3 HP, forcing me to forego the defense boosts and switch to Big Daddy. Our Effect Spore ability kicks in when Mimikyu connects with the Shadow Claw, forcing it to eat up its Lumberry. This means I can use a Confuse Ray without having to waste a turn. I get pretty lucky with Confusion, get some HP back from a Giga Drain, but then it calls in a second ally, Jellicent. And oh my god, this thing was a nightmare. Nightshade allows it to get some reliable damage off on us, and I can heal back again with Giga Drain, which stops just shy of taking it out. Mimikyu falls asleep, again due to our Effect Spore, but then this stupid Jellicent goes for Spite. Normally, I'm not too concerned about a move like Spite, since I often use moves that have 15 or more power points. However, Big Daddy only has moves that have either 5 or 10 PP. It's definitely my fault for not killing it and letting it drain me with Spite, but I honestly at first didn't think it was that big of a deal, and thought it was more productive to get damage on the totem. I'm eventually left with no way to damage these enemies, so I set up some confusions, then switch into Cupid. I'm forced to start with Synthesis, since Jellicent landed a Nightshade on the switch-in. But then it hits itself in its confusion, and I'm able to end it once and for all with a final Magical Leaf. Big Daddy levels up here and learns a move that I wish I knew about before I started this trial, Strength Sap. If we had Strength Sap going into this, we could have maybe led with Shiinotic to reduce the Mimikyu's attack stat to practically nothing. I definitely should have at least gotten to the level cap with everyone before attempting this trial. The rest of the battle then just progresses with us using a few Magical Leafs, while healing with Syntheses after taking damage from Slash and Shadow Claw. Well, the run isn't deathless anymore. We're finally going to gain access to Sharpedo, right after nostalgia hits me like a train when talking to Grimsley. Is it just me that thinks of that one Drake and Josh scene whenever he says this line about a flip coin never landing at all? I know you've gotta know the one.
You know, they say 1 in 5 people don't even make it to the ground.
Wow.
What do you mean they don't make it to the ground? Where do they go?
Whenever a Team Skull member hears the words Po-Town, a sense of accomplishment and pride is conjured up in their mind. Similar to how when any other person of Alola hears those same words, absolutely no feelings are conjured up at all. But even if it isn't really significant, we still have to lay waste to Team Skull since they're holding the one true Z Crystal hostage. Finally, Obamium Z. Does anyone else hear My Chemical Romance music? You really need to chill, dude. All that misery and hate you're holding onto will kill us all. But I guess I'll tag along, right after a quick grand trial against Officer Nanu. He's a wielder of dark types, so this shouldn't take very long. Just give me like 2 seconds. I don't remember exactly when we added Wanda here back to the team, but it was probably right before the Mimikyu trial, and at this point I'm too lazy to check after editing that battle, so yeah. Anyways, he starts with Sableye, whose only weakness is the fairy type. How convenient, eh? Or at least, it would be convenient if Wanda had any fairy type moves. Fake Out flinches us first turn, before we can use Sparkling Aria, which, after a critical hit, is almost a one-shot. His Hyper Potion is then wasted as we two-shot it with more Sparkling Arias. After Sableye's gone, he brings in Croc Rock and goes for Swagger. We don't hurt ourselves, thankfully, and another Sparkling Aria brings him down to his last Pokemon. For Persian, I switch into Schnozmo, hoping to quad resist a potential Z move, but I forgot that it had Fake Out. But that doesn't make much difference though, since we can't attack on a switch anyways. But I realized later that Schnozmo doesn't have any fairy type moves either to actually hit it. So after flinching to Dark Pulse, I baton pass into Wandissimo. I knew for sure that Wandissimo had a strong fairy move in Moonblast, which ends up one-shotting this Kahuna's ace. I think that grand trial was even easier than the Melee one. One staple of Pokemon games is that they appeal to their younger audience with plotlines that are typically simple and make sense. The Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon games are unique though, in the fact that they go absolutely bat crazy. We have 2 difficult team boss battles right in a row here, and unfortunately, blood was spilled on these pristine battlefields. We first have to take on the Team Skull boss Guzma. He sends in Golisopod first, and I start with Petal Dance from Comfey to activate Emergency Exit on the second turn. This confuses us on turn 3 before he brings in Vikavolt. Before the battle, I had already decided that we need to sacrifice Cupid to win as easily as possible. With Cupid down, Wanda is then able to come in full health against Vikavolt, survive a Thunderbolt, and then take it out with 2 Moonblasts. Without the safe switch there's no way Wanda could have survived. When he brings in Pinsir, I switch to Wandissimo to start reducing his accuracy with sand attacks, so those nasty stone edges have no chance of landing. But then for some reason he starts going for a Throat Chop instead, so I just eventually switch back to the offensive with 2 Moonblasts, securing us the kill. His next teammate is Masquerain, which is faster than everything on my team at the moment, but thankfully it's not able to deal much damage to Schnozmo, so I bring him in to eat some air cutters and then take it out in a single Rock Slide. Golisopod comes back in and survives 1 Rock Slide and hits us hard in return with Razor Shell. Rock Slide has only 90% accuracy, and we're in range to be killed on the next turn, but I risk it anyways, and we hit it. Don't tell Cupid I said this, but I wasn't too bummed about his death, since he was kinda weighing the whole team down. Oh, there's this other battle against Dulce as well, but I kinda forgot about it since it was practically one and done. Now comes the big plot twist that nobody saw coming. Lily and Gladion are brother and sister? This is such a shocker! I just need to take a seat. Give me a minute, please. At times, I got the feeling that you were watching over me while I was out there on my own. But other times, I felt that I should go. I went through it all. Your rise and fall, the bodies in the ice. And when you're gone, I just want you to know that I'll carry on. Thanks for the exposition, Gladion. Lusamine, you really had a falling out with your son. Alright, now you've just gone crazy. The only way to hopefully bring her back to some semblance of sanity is to defeat her in a Pokemon battle, of course. She starts with Clefable, which I prepared for by leading Schnozmo. Iron Head is a 2-hit after she hits a Psychic. She also tries to go for a Charm, but our Hyper Cutter ability comes in handy here to prevent an attack drop. After Clefable falls, she brings in her Furry Bait, which lands a Thunder Punch before we start setting up with an Iron Defense. A second Thunder Punch activates our Citrus Berry, then for some reason she switches to use Ice Punch. We then get some damage off with a Brick Break, but also get afflicted with Infatuation thanks to Cute Charm. I don't know, I don't get the huge hype of being attracted to Lopunny. We're immobilized for a turn, but then get off 2 more Brick Breaks to send it flying. But not before one of its Fire Punches gives us a nasty burn. She brings in my Milotic, and I try to Baton Pass, but I'm too slow and we succumb to the High Pressure Blast. This death is definitely the one that affected me the most in this run, since Mawile is pretty much my only way to easily beat the Kommo-o Totem battle coming up, and the battle against Molayne. We flew too close to the sun, but we have to press on anyways. I bring in Big Daddy to get off Spore after eating another Hydro Pump. This then allows us to freely Giga Drain it into Oblivion. Beware comes in and gets off a bit more damage with a Zen Headbutt, but I Spore it as well and go for a Strength Sap to get some healing and lower its attack stat. Then I'm able to safely go for a Moonblast, which is almost a one-shot, so on the next turn Beware wakes up, hits us with a Drain Punch, and falls to a second Moonblast. Her last Pokemon is Lilligant, but I'm in a good position since it has no moves that can really hurt us. I switch to Poof to help speed the battle along, but get Teeter Danced on the switch. I prepared for this though with an attached Lumberry. Then on the next turn, we just barely fail to take it out and get smacked with a Stun Spore. That's a big oof right there. It then Petal Dances to bring us to below half, but luckily we break through confusion and win the battle. 2 back-to-back deaths really isn't great for our team, especially since one of those deaths was Schnozmo. I have no idea how I'm going to survive the Molayne fight later. But yeah, I'm sure we're all familiar with what happens here. We failed to bring her back to her senses, so she and Guzma just go through the wormhole, and for all we know, probably die. And that's my problem. Why? Ugh, fine. We'll go try to save them. Time to head out to the Altar of the Sun on Pony Island. Keanu Reeves greets us when we reach the Seafolk village. Lily, please stop fangirling. John Wick takes us to Executor Island to pick up the Sun Flute. Then this little 8-year-old Hapu gains the burden of protecting the entirety of Pony Island. I don't think that's super healthy for an 8-year-old's mental health, but what do I know? Maybe she's just built different. She guides our way to the vast Pony Canyon, which personally I think has some pretty slappin' funky music. Before we can go praise the sun though, we have to pass through this captainless dragon type trial. Normally this trial would be a piece of cake for fairies, since Totem Kommo-o is 4 times weak to fairy type moves. However, this Kommo-o is holding a Roselia Berry, and is equipped with Poison Jab. With Schnozmo this wouldn't have been a problem at all, but we don't have Schnozmo anymore. I send in Cosmo first to set up a Reflect, but I know there's no way anyone can safely switch in here and survive an attack from both Noivern and Kommo-o. So I have to sacrifice Cosmo and use him as a pivot into Wanda, who first handles the Noivern with Moonblast while taking a bit less than half health from a Poison Jab. We're brought to 14 hit points, but then use another Moonblast. The Roselia Berry didn't even matter here, since we took the knockout with a very lucky critical hit. If I had known that would happen, maybe Cosmo wouldn't have had to die. We managed to evolve Nebby into Solgaleo right before Necrozma escapes the Ultra Megalopolis to steal the light from the entire Alola region. I find it really strange that we both knew the exact song to play and were able to get it right on the first try. Hasn't this ritual not been done for like hundreds or thousands of years? How did we actually pull this off? The Ultra Megalopolis is a scary, but also very empty place. It's basically Detroit. Aw man, can't have shit in Detroit. How am I going to survive this battle, you may ask? It's simple. I have an unbeatable strategy. This battle needs no explanation. Wait, you thought I was actually gonna fight that thing? You're crazy! It's brighter than the Discord light theme! Obligatory call to action here to tell you to join my Discord server, link in the description. And now that the world is saved, we just have a few more things to do before the League Challenge. We first take on Mina's trial, which basically consists of a lot of battles against various trial captains from earlier in the game. This video is already getting pretty long though, so I'll only show the battle against her. We get pretty lucky against her Mawile with Wanda and get a quick call activation to bring it down with Sparkling Aria in a single turn. Then she brings in Gramble, who meets the exact same fate with yet another quick call activation. 2 of those in a row is literally a 1 in 100 chance. Finally, we have her Rabombi, which holds a piece of Fairium Z. I switch into Rip Studwell, tank a Dazzling Gleam, then successfully waste her Z move. Thanks for the pivot, buddy. Sorry you had such a terrible life. Now we're able to bring Wanda back in and take the kill with 2 more Sparkling Arias. And that final quick call activation was absolutely necessary for the win here. What the f*** is this, Mina? With the magic of editing, it took no time at all to collect the petals and summon the totem Rabombi. This totem was pretty easy, since its own ally was its ultimate demise. I start with Icy Wind to lower its speed on the first turn. Then it calls in a Drizzle Pelipper. This powers up my Sparkling Aria, which does half to both the totem and Pelipper. Another super clutch Quick Claw Sparkling Aria brings us our final Z crystal, the Fairium Z. Too bad Z moves are banned though. I kinda wanted to default dance on all these plebeians. And last but not least, we have the Grand Trial, which for some reason has a lower level cap than the 8th Trial Totem? The level caps in this game are pretty goofy towards the end here. Hapu's the last trainer we have to face on Pony Island, but this is pretty much just another sweep for Wanda and Big Daddy. Sparkling Aria leaves Golurk on just a sliver of health, but this means she wastes her Hyper Potion as I take it out with another on the next turn. Her signature Bloodthirsty Mudsdale is next, and again Sparkling Aria takes the kill. Flygon can be pretty troublesome, but we survive an Earth Power easily and get the kill with a single Icy Wind. Then finally for Gastrodon, I have to switch into Big Daddy and one-shot it with a Giga Drain. I swear, these Kahuna battles were easier than some of the trials. Now that we're out of the trial portion of the game, I backtrack a bit and catch a Klefki with the fitting name
Dinkelberg.
I don't even care if Dinkelberg isn't a fairy, this is funny. I should have known you would play my heart. This is how you left me, my fault falling for you. I thought you were different, but you were just like Therist. Worthless! God, I about had a stroke trying to read that without cracking up laughing. Another banger from the You Some soundtrack here. I play this pretty much every day to get myself pumped in the morning. What's your favorite Victoria Road theme? We finally arrived. We're almost at the end now, but there's a bit of preparation I need to do still. Remember those totem stickers I kept mentioning throughout the video? This is where they become important, because once we collect 80 of them, we're able to get a totem-sized Mimikyu from Samson Oak on Hia Hia Beach. I feel April Fool is a fitting name here given its ability. We also go racing around the region to stock up on some potentially useful TMs and take advantage of the move reminder here at the League to set up our team to the best they can be. I also need to do some more Mantine surfing to be able to afford indispensable items available only at the Battle Royale Dome. In this game, we're allowed to challenge the League in any order we wish, and I always like to get the hardest one out of the way first, so I don't have to waste my time with the others if the run is just gonna die here anyways. In this challenge, our biggest hurdle is going to be Molayne, but this is why I picked up a Klefki from the Thrifty Megamart trial site. Klefki has access to the move Imprison. We can build a similar moveset to his Klefki to force the AI to switch out on the second turn, and also stop potential spikes that can build up damage later on. He paralyzes us with Thunder Wave, but we manage to come through next turn and get off a single layer of spikes that'll break the sturdy of the later Mons and his team. We then set up a priority reflect before Dugtrio hits us with an Earthquake. This gives us a safe switch into Wanda since the Dugtrio only has physical moves. Earthquake hits us twice before our Sparkling Aria takes out Dugtrio. Out next is Magnezone, who takes damage from our spikes, which is just enough to bring it into knockout range with another Sparkling Aria. Then we have to deal with the pseudo-legend Metagross, who is faster than us and brings us to 29 HP with a Meteor Mash. But Primarina is apparently low-key cracked, and one-shots it with the Aria. Then we're against his Bisharp, but switching into Mimikyu allows us to take an Iron Head and start a small setup with Hone Claws. The Swords Dance team isn't available until post-game sadly, I checked. It just goes for Metal Sound though, so we're still in this thing. I'm then able to two-shot it with Play Rough after taking another full hit from Iron Head. I switch to Blonda to tank damage from the Klefki's incoming Flash Cannon, then set up with Light Screen as it goes for a layer of spikes. But it's a bit late now for the spikes to really hurt us all too much. I also set up a Wish after being paralyzed, which is picked up by Dinkelberg on the switch-in. I don't know why I went Dinkelberg here, but I figured it would be funny to have an honor battle, especially with the move Imprison. Imprison has so few uses, and this is one of those niche cases where it's actually helpful, so it only feels right to do it this way. All that's left for me to do now is Flash Cannon him to death since he has no access to any moves that deal damage as long as Dinkelberg is still on the field. That went, honestly, a lot better than I first thought it would. I then immediately choose to take on Olivia, and this battle was a nice sigh of relief after the Steel Nightmare. I again lead Dinkelberg to set up some silly spike shenanigans to break the sturdy abilities later in the match. Then I go for Thunderwave against the Armaldo and set up with Light Screen and Reflect to mitigate damage for 8 turns thanks to Light Clay. I then get a free switch into Primarina and start to destroy her with Choice Specs Sparkling Aria. Cradily survives one Specs boosted attack, but just uses its turn to set up an irrelevant Stealth Rock. Sandstream from Gigalith kicks up a Sandstorm, which raises the special defense of all of our team members by 50%, but even that buff can't protect her from my Reign of Havoc. When she brings in Lycanroc though, I do decide to switch to April Fool to waste her Z move with Disguise. And to my pleasure, this strategy works like a charm. I then switch in Dinkelberg to start setting up screens again, since around this time they were starting to break. Reflect seems the most important in this moment, so I set it up first, fall to 2 HP from a Stone Edge, then switch back to Wanda to continue our sweep. All 4 of our Stone Edges hit here, which is mad unfortunate, but we one-shot it without any deaths, so we're all good. Last is Probopass, and its sturdy is broken by our spikes. I don't think I can survive any of its attacks at this point though, so I go into the specially bulky Blonda. We're paralyzed by Thunderwave, but do manage to set up another Light Screen. This gives me an in with Big Daddy now, who is able to put her to sleep with Spore, then regain HP with a series of Giga Drains. She does however use a full heal that I wasn't aware of, so I have to use Spore just one more time. Some more Giga Drains, Strength Sap, and Spores later, and we claim victory with a final low HP Sparkling Aria from Wanda. After Olivia, I choose to face off against Golf and Flying type Ace Kahili. Braviary hits us with a quick Brave Bird before we can take it down with an Ice Beam. I switch into Dinkelberg when she brings out Hawlucha, allowing me to get off of Paralysis and set up some screens again. I'm then free to switch into April Fool, which completely avoids the damage from Flying Press, and start setting up with Hone Claws. A Poison Jab fails to break our Disguise though due to her own Mold Breaker ability, and instead hits us with some relatively weak damage. It also inflicts us with Poison, but she falls to one of our attack boosted Play Roughs. Mandibuzz is her 3rd team member, and because Hawlucha was unable to break our Disguise, we're able to freely 2-shot it with Play Rough. Now that our Disguise is broken and we're low though, I switch into Dinkelberg when she brings out Toucannon. This allows us to survive her Flying Z move with minimal damage and set up a Thunderwave on the next turn. This paralysis forces her to waste a turn with full heal, allowing me to set up another Reflect. We then paralyze her again and then get taken low by a Beak Blast before switching into Blonda. The paralysis stops another Beak Blast coming our way, giving us a chance to get a critical hit Moonblast, then 2-shot it with Moonblast after she uses a full restore. All that's left is her Oricorio, but I've said it before in this video, and I'll say it again. This isn't Fortnite, so no silly dance is going to be stopping me. I set up Light Screen, Wish, and then switch into Wanda for a kill with Aria. Finally, we have to deal with Acerola. She leads with Bayonet, and I start with April Fool this time around. I Hone Claws turn 1 to give us the attack boost, then just go to town with Shadow Claw. Delmise is pretty tanky, so it breaks our Disguise with a Shadow Ball, but this is really no issue. We cause her to waste 2 full restores on this dumb anchor before getting a high roll and bringing in her Frostlass. Frostlass is faster, so we're at risk of a death from a crit. We go unpunished though, even if our special defense was dropped. Frail Frostlass falls to a Shadow Claw, and then we're on to her Palisand. I have to switch here into Klefki so I can set up Light Screen, but this allows her to get up an Iron Defense. So instead of bringing April Fool back in, I give Wanda a shot at it and wash this sandcastle away with Aria. Driftblim is last, but we're totally fine here since it just goes for some weak ominous winds and falls after 2 Arias. I never realized how good that move actually was until this challenge. The last battle of the run is upon us, and the challenger is a familiar face. Hal came a long way since our first battle in Iki Town, but even so, he's got no chance against my fairies. I lead Blonda into his Raichu to tank Thunderbolts and set up Light Screen. I then choose to use Wish to give myself a free switch into Poof. This allows me to then set up Reflect, then take it out with Bug Buzz. He brings in Incineroar, and so to preserve myself, I switch into April Fool to eat a Flare Blitz. I'm then able to get off a Charm, then switch into Wanda to waste his Fire-type Z-move. His moves had no shot here, so I put it out of its misery with Sparkling Aria. He brings in Leafeon next, so I switch into Poof as a pivot, but for some reason we managed to survive Leaf Blade. Not to any benefit though, since Quick Attack just ends us on the next turn. Yeah, I probably could have somehow played around that. I bring in Big Daddy to land some super powerful Moonblasts and get a 2-hit knockout. His 4th team member is Crabominable, which is overall generally just pretty weak, so I switch into Dinkelberg to start setting up screens and paralysis. This grants me a very safe switch into Wanda, who uses Moonblast for the takedown. Taurus is the wild card in this battle, but we luckily survive a double edge and get off Moonblast. This brings us down to his final Pokemon Noivern, who really has no shot here. Air Slash does get us down to 10 HP, but one more Moonblast wins us the whole challenge. Woo! It's finally over. That's all I've got for you this time. I just want to thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, you've probably enjoyed the video, so I'd like to ask you to consider leaving a like and comment, and perhaps even share it to some of your other Pokemon-loving friends. I want to bring the most entertaining content to this community that I can, and to make sure that it reaches the target audience, I need your help. My current goal is to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the year, so let's work together to smash it. If you want even more content to binge, I've also linked a few of my other videos here, so take your pick. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you later. Mom, I literally just saved the world and became the champion, and you still haven't managed to unpack even a single box?